Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. It is Mindset Reset Monday. We're talking about you're not who you were, and that's okay. You're not who you were, and that's okay. Listen, unfollow the old you. Unfollow the old you. You've outgrown a version of yourself, you guys. You've outgrown a version of you that was built for survival. Okay. And today we're talking about how to explain or how to stop explaining what your evolution, all right, your becoming, all right, your growth, all right. Let the version of you that they remember, that you remember, that your family remember, that your friends remember, right? Let's put that version of you at peace, right? Right? As you rise. We know that this series this month is all about rising, right? We talked about the R, the I, the S, and now we're talking about the E, right? The whole part of embrace, right? E is for embracing. So we want to stop explaining your evolution and really start living in it. You know, here's why, because you don't have to explain or you don't have to apologize for growing, all right? Not to your old friends, not to your family, right? Not even to the version of you that stays small in survival, right? We don't have to apologize for that, all right? And so in today's life lesson, right, it's really a permission slip to stop evolving, right? I mean, to start evolving without guilt, you guys, to start evolving without guilt, all right? Okay. All right. So we're talking about old roles, false labels, and silent shame, right? And how to finally say, I'm not who I used to be, and that's okay. All right. I'm not who I used to be, and that's okay. So in today's so inside of today's lesson, all right, let's stop shrinking for the people who wouldn't grow with us, right? So let's stop shrinking for people who wouldn't grow with us. That's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about how to release the guilt, right, of really changing for a good reason. All right. And then we're going to talk about the root, right? Um, how to root into the person we're becoming, how to really root ourselves in the person we're becoming. All right. I want you to think about this as your thought for today. What's one belief or role you've outgrown but still feel the need to explain? What's one belief or role that you know you've outgrown but you still feel a need to explain it to, yourself, your family, your friends, your coworkers, or whatever? Okay, listen, today's life lesson is truly about recognizing that you are no longer who you were. And that's not arrogance, you guys. That is what we call alignment. All right. You are not who you were. And that's not being arrogant. That's just called alignment. All right. All right. So the quiet guilt, right? We're talking about the quiet guilt that of evolving past our old roles, right? We've grown now. We're adults, right? We're not who we used to be. The discomfort of outgrowing relationships, because it is uncomfortable. All right. It is uncomfortable. When we outgrow relationships, when we outgrow the expectations, even our past dreams, you guys, like a lot of that part is not talked about enough. And it is an uncomfortable place, right? And then the courage, right? The courage it takes to no longer explain your healing to people who like the wounded version of you. All right. All right. That's what we're talking about today. That is what we're talking about today. So, again, what's one world expectation or relationship that you've outgrown? But you've been really shrinking to stay what? To stay digestible or loyal. All right. And we all do it, right? We all do it. But I want to bring that to the forefront today. Listen, I really want to bring that to the forefront today because today we're talking about embrace. The last part of the series of Rise, really this whole week is about embracing who we are, where we're at. Because listen, if you don't know what the healing process is, healing, the first step in healing is truly just embracing, right? Just acceptance, right? Accepting what? Accepting the good, the bad, and the ugly. Accepting the responsibility, right? That cap. Either I'm causing this in my life, I'm allowing this to happen in my life, or I'm participating in this happening in my life, right? I am not a victim, right, to any circumstance or condition. That's the first step of healing, really taking ownership in the role that you're playing, because you're not playing You are not the full cause of everything, right? But what role am I playing? Am I causing this? Am I allowing it, or am I participating, right, in my current discomfort, in my current dis-ease, right? And the recognition and embracing that transformation is going to be uncomfortable. We're going to talk about that today because today is Mindset Reset Monday. Okay, Mindset Reset Monday, and we know on Mondays we talk about what? Stories, right? The stories. So today's title again, you're not who you were. And guess what? That's okay. That's okay. Why today's session? Listen, so many of us feel guilty for evolving. This is the truth. So many people feel guilty for evolving. So we try to carry old roles, outdated expectations, and versions of ourselves that made sense in our past seasons. But guess what? Now they're heavy. They're heavy lifts for us, right? And I'm going to pause right there because I think that sometimes we don't even want to go home, right? We don't even want to go around old friends. We don't even want to go because it's a heavy lift, right? Because we don't really know how to stand in the version of us that has evolved with, and then really I don't know, whether or stand up or advocate for this new person, like, oh, that's just not me anymore, without feeling the heaviness of that, because that's practice. All right. Listen, this lesson is about really giving yourself full permission to honor, right? To honor um who you've become and release the pressure to keep what? To keep performing in spaces that you've outgrown. All right. It's time to really move into integrity, not obligation. All right. So many of us have outgrown spaces and then we shrink. We've outgrown relationships, but then we shrink. And here's the thing, it's okay to be fluid. Okay. It's okay to be fluid in our growth, meaning um you know, I may not talk a certain way, I may not be a certain way, and I don't really have to judge you for being that way. And I could be in your presence and allow you to be that way while I'm still the way I am. I don't think that that's what I know that that's not what today's conversation is. Today's conversation is the dismissal or the abandonment of you, right, to fit into these spaces, right, where you've changed, that you're not that person anymore, but you feel like you have to perform, right, to be accepted. So you're abandoning the knowledgeable you, the grown you, the person that has evolved. You're abandoning that person, like, hey, you stay on the front porch, I'm gonna go here and handle them because Rick can't bring you in. So you kind of abandoning this individual that you've worked hard for, right? That you've either gotten an education for, that you've cried, that you've had some blood, sweat, and tears about, and you have not integrated, right? You have not integrated that individual, that part of you, into what? Into your life, with your mate, with your kids, with your coworkers, whatever, right? And today's conversation, or this whole week, is really about embracing that, because what you're waiting for is for someone to give you the permission to stand in that truth, or you're waiting for someone to say it's okay, right? We see that you've been growing. Tell us what you've grown about, tell us what you've grown, tell us how you've grown, or whatever. And it's like, that's not their job, that's your job. Okay. Listen, today's disclaimer, this session is designed to really help you honor your current self without guilt, without shame, or without apology, right? But true integration really happens when you allow your evolution to be expressed, right? And how you show up. If you're ready to really embody how or who you're becoming, guess what? Project Life gives you this structure, okay? The support and the spiritual grounding to really walk it out, right? Now walk that out, right? To really walk this out. So good morning again. Good morning again. It's Mindset Reset Monday. So let's take our deep breath. All right, let's take our deep breath on this morning, right? This is our time, no pressure. It is Memorial Day, right? We got some grills going. I smelled the grills yesterday. Had some barbecue yesterday, some baked beans. I think that's going to happen again today. So it's the holiday. A lot of us have off on this day, right? Didn't want to come on too early, right? Just to kind of, get some rest on this morning. All right. So let's get present in our bodies, feeling our feet on the floor. Again, just making it a habit to get present in our body, practicing and letting our nervous system know that it's safe, right? It's safe to be present in our body. So feeling our feet on the floor, up our legs, just feeling our legs, right? Our thighs, feeling our butts in the seat. This can be a little different, okay? Right, it can be a little different, but being present in the body is really reprogramming the nervous system that it's safe, right? That it's safe to be present in the body, and it's really taking the attention from everywhere, right, and placing it right here, all right, up our spine, right, all the nerves up our spine, just giving it gratitude and thankfulness on today in this moment. Feeling our rib cage, right, wrap around and supporting our organs, our nerve system. Our nervous system, all of our organs, our heart, our lungs, right, up our neck, right, down our shoulders, elbows, hands, activating our hands, right, really thinking about what's that one thing I can do today that I've been putting off that I'm gonna make happen today. Up our the back of our necks, right? That's our old brain. That's where we store a lot of old, that's the brain that gets passed to us, giving that a little bit of a gratitude on this morning, right? Our jaws, nose, eyes, ears, right? Just softening our ears and how we hear today, all right? Our skeleton, all right, and then our skin, right? The largest organ, right? Our skin, just thanking it for keeping us put together, right? And keeping us safe, letting us know when things are too hot, too cold, right? Allowing us to sweat and all the stuff that the skin does. That's just so amazing, all right? And again, if we're feeling too cramped up this morning, let's just kind of feel ourselves kind of grow a little bit, right? And then if we're feeling too big, let's bring ourselves in. And good morning, good morning. Drop a word in the chat. Let me know how you're feeling on this morning. I'm feeling grateful, right? Over this weekend, I was able to get some work done up at the office. Put up some pictures, do some things. I'm looking at my cap and gown that came over the weekend. So I pulled that out, had my little hat, tried it on. Definitely emotional, right? Just seeing everything come together and living in that duality, right? Because I too am in a process of grieving, right? Grieving this old life, the old way of being, and showing up in this new expectation, this new way of being, right? Even with the project, we're sitting in 5 months of this project now, going to be 6 months, right? Of how I do business. So there's a grieving process that's happening that I absolutely feel, right? And then there's also the gratitude. So there's a little bit of sadness, a little bit of uncertainty, right? But then there's also the gratitude and the growth, right? And so this week is also, I think it's going to speak to me a whole lot, right? So even as I was reading through the material for this week, I'm like, okay, God, hold me, hold me with this one, because I do think that in my process of rising, like a lot of this is a part of the journey, right? This living in grief, right? This grieving the old me, recognizing that, there's part of me that I just don't even have to explain, I know that all too well, right? Because, I was Sheila in the limelight. I had my shenanigans, and I am a doctor now. And and I'm grown. And it's certain things that I just like, hey, have your story about me. That's okay, And there's still parts of me that are maturing and evolving, right? And I can live with all the aspects of me, right, and my growth and evolution, and I don't have to apologize, all right? I don't have to apologize. So who this session is for? Like, you've grown, right? But you're still explaining that growth, all right? You've grown, but you're still explaining that growth. It's for you if that's where you find yourself at. You've shifted, all right? But you keep showing up in spaces that want the old you, all right? And I'm gonna even stretch that a little bit. So you shifted, but you keep showing up in spaces that want the old you, or you keep showing up in spaces that you want to accept you, right? This new version of you, all right? This new version of you. All right. Okay. You've evolved, but it feels scary to let people meet the new you, right? You've evolved, but it feels scary to let people really meet the new you. All right. Listen, you're not who you were, and that's okay. All right. Listen, the core focus of today's session is this is really a permission slip to stop apologizing for your evolution. Okay. It invites you to really sit with the discomfort of really no longer being available for old roles, beliefs, and dynamics. Okay. And to really normalize that growth doesn't always come with applause. All right. All right, here's the real life thing. Old friendships, they sound like we used to relate through chaos, right? Through gossip, through people pleasing. And now I crave different connections, right? I crave peace. I crave truth. I crave growth, right? I don't, those type of conversations no longer ignite me. And guess what? That's okay. But guess what? That don't make your friends, the people who like that don't make them bad. And I think that's where we get it wrong, because to find some peace in us, we have to judge that old part of us harshly, right? The person that used to like chaos or gossip or people pleasing, when we evolve, it's like we become, our nose gets, I guess we act like we're better, right? Like I don't do that anymore. And I think that's in some way we think that that's the way to cut that off, and it's not, right? It's not. That's, we have to honor that space, because that part of you is what got us here. All right. All right. So again, old friendships, we used to relate through chaos, through gossip, and through people pleasing, but just now I just crave connection, a different connection, right? Rooted in peace, through truth and growth, right? And I understand that doesn't work for you. That don't mean that you're wrong or I'm right. It just means that in this stage, this is what I need, right, to feed me. Family roles, all right. Listen, they still expect me to be the fixer, the strong one, the quiet one, right? But I've outgrown that costume. All right. I'm not the fixer anymore. I'm not the strong one, right? I'm not the quiet one. Okay. That costume doesn't fit me anymore, right? And in some way in me, I need to embrace that. All right. That costume got me here, right? But I've outgrown it. All right. We're gonna get that to somebody else, or we can burn it. All right, we can burn it, but it just no longer serves this space that I'm going into. All right. And then outdated expectations. Listen, I no longer find pride in suffering. All right. I'm no longer willing to confuse self-neglect for strength. It's just not happening. All right. I no longer find pride in suffering. Okay. And I no longer am willing to confuse self neglect for strength. All right. Listen, you're not abandoning others by evolving. All right. You're honoring the truth, right, that God has revealed within you, that this divinity, and when I'm talking about divinity, again, I'm just talking about your unlimited potential, right? Your ability to transcend what? Limitations. All right, that is placed in you. So you're honoring that truth, right, within you. Holding on to who you used to be is not being loyal to that. All right. All right. It's being so when you're not being loyal to that, you're actually being you're actually in emotional stagnation. All right. Listen, you're trying to shrink your growth to stay digestible. All right. Forgetting that you're not meant to fit where you no longer belong. And that is the emotional part, right? That's the part that brings tears in your eyes, right? Because we want to bring everybody with us, and we want people to really understand, right? There's a comfort in that. There's a comfort in one growing, right? And wanting more. So you want the applause. You feel like people should see you like, man, you're doing great things. And when that doesn't happen, there's a hurt, there's a sadness, there's a grieving process that happens. And I want you to know that you're going to be okay. All right. And people don't tend to talk about that, right? People don't tend to talk about that. When we see it on social media, you see the girl and her friends and they're hanging out, and you see everybody applauding her, and you're wondering, well, why is people not applauding me? You know, why am I not growing? Right? Why am I not getting the applause from the people around me? And so it reinforces this idea that maybe something's wrong, maybe you're not doing it right, or maybe you just shouldn't grow. And I'm just like, no, that's not it. Right? That person on social media is going through the same thing that you're going through. They're just not talking about it. All right? They're just not talking about it. All right? Listen, again, uh sometimes we shrink so that we can be digestible, right? Forgetting that we're not meant to fit in places that we don't belong, okay? That we don't belong. And that right there is the heartbeat of today's message, all right? It's not about being defiant, you guys. It's about really being mature, right? And as we mature, right, we just grow differently. And unfortunately, when we became adults, we hear this a lot. Like when you became a mother, you didn't get a pamphlet say this is how to become a mother. When you became a father, you didn't get a pamphlet to say this is how you become a father. But guess what? When you became an adult, you also didn't get a pamphlet that said this is how to become an adult, right? And so you're figuring it out. Basically, you're figuring out how to be an adult, right? And so in this maturing, as you mature, there's a stage of just a pruning, right? Where you grow, right? And things fall off. All right. Again, we're talking about so our guiding quote for today. All right. You are allowed to grow beyond expectations of those who only knew your survival. All right. That's it. You are allowed to grow beyond the expectation of those who only knew your survival. Listen, this month we're talking about rise. All right. Rise is not just about inspiration, you guys. It's a blueprint for becoming. Each letter stands for a core phase in our emotional and mindset transformation. The R was really about recognizing, right? It was about recognize. What was that? Awareness and replacement, really helping you to identify your limiting beliefs, your inherited narratives, and your emotional scripts that no longer serve you. All right. You begin to see yourself more clearly, right? Not through fear, not through guilt or survival patterns, but through truth and curiosity. All right. And we talked about all about being inspired. All right. Thoughtful renewal and emotional expansion, really inviting you to really replace what the old habits with possibilities. This is all about planting the seed of new beliefs that really reflect who you are becoming. Okay, not who you had been, right? So you started to really believe differently that and that began to show in how you move, right? Right. So this is all about being inspired, okay? And then last week, which was as we talk about strengthen, right? Confidence in practice, all right, really just help to guide you and to embody this new mindset of what routines, habits, and rituals that really anchor your growth. Okay, confidence is not a feeling, it's built through what? Repetition and boundaries. All right, so you started to build what? Self trust, not from perfection, but truly from consistency and compassion. All right, and then E was all about embrace. That's this week as we wrap this up, and this is all about stabilizing um integration and identity. All right, integration and identity, and this is the stabilizing phase. All right, it's really where we stop waiting to feel ready and we start living for what you've learned. All right, this isn't a transformational moment, you guys. It's about a transformational lifestyle. All right, you don't just know better, right? You don't just know better. You become the version of you that walks in alignment. Listen, the heart of Rise is all about this. You don't need to become someone new. I've said this over and over again. You don't need to become someone new. You need to stop abandoning who you already are. All right. This self-abandonment, we have to stop it. And it is emotional. When you don't abandon yourself, when you save yourself, there's still a sense of abandonment. And who are you abandoning? You're probably abandoning the individuals or the circumstances or conditions that you chose over you for years and years and years and years and years. So that's why the grief, you're grieving that because you have chose circumstances, conditions, and people for years and years and years, right? As you abandon yourself. All right. But now you're not abandoning yourself anymore, and you're abandoning that. And that is the duality, right? That's the emotion that you tend to feel. All right. But again, this is not about becoming someone new. This is about you stopping abandoning who you already are. So this series again is to call is calling you to remember, to reclaim, and really to reintegrate what the growth. That growth is not a single lap or a single leap, right? It's a series of decisions and moments, right? And decisions and moments and decisions and moments that all build up. Okay, that confidence is built through showing up. All right, not by showing off. Right, it's showing up in these small moments, even showing up in the fear, right? Doing the thing over and over and over again. And listen, that God is not only in the sky, right? It's not just around us in creation, right? But there's a God that is dwelling within us, all right? That is dwelling within us, that's guiding us every day, right? As we are becoming, that there is a divinity in us that's guiding us every day. Listen, I remember a woman in our community who said, I feel like I was betraying my family by changing, right? She had been the fixer, the emotional sponge, the glue, right? But now she wanted rest. She wanted softness. She wanted truth, you guys. And yet, and yet, guilt told her that letting go meant that she was abandoning them, right? But here's what she realized. She wasn't abandoning her people, right? It wasn't just about her abandoning her. It wasn't just her abandoning her people. It was truly her reclaiming herself, okay? So she didn't have to choose between connection and truth. She just needed to stop pretending to be someone that she had already outgrown, all right? Let me say that again. It wasn't just about her abandoning people, all right? It was more about her reclaiming herself, all right? Going back and getting her, all right? She didn't have to choose between connection and truth, all right? She doesn't have to choose between that. She just had to stop pretending to be somebody that she had outgrown, okay? And a lot of us have to stop pretending to be someone that we know we're not that anymore. We know we've outgrown that space. So now we just have to be courageous and stand up in what we've grown in. And a lot of times it's the confidence, right? Like we know this old space, right? We know how to do that because we've done that over and over again. It's the new space. Like if you get questioned hard enough or you get pushed hard enough, are you confident enough in this new person that you can stand on it? But if you never stand on it, you will never get confident, right? So let them push, let them ask, let them challenge you, because each challenge, each push, each question is only going to make you stronger in that entity. But if you're hiding it and waiting for this evolved you to be confident and perfect and well put together and able to answer every question and able to stand, right? If you never exposing it to the environment, or you're not allowing it yet to be exposed to the environment, then you're not going to ever feel confident in this new person that you're becoming, right? It needs to be challenged, right? Remember, iron sharpening iron, right? The iron sharpening iron is not like two like sharp swords, right? It's this rough environment, right? This rough thing really sharpening, right? This other part of you. And so, yeah, you need that roughness. You need people when you show up and say, I don't do that no more. And then they say, oh, so you don't do that no more? What changed about you? Or you need somebody to question it, even if they're not questioning it, assessing it, even if they're questioning it out of curiosity, right? You need that. You need to feel that, right? So that you can get and then fill it with curiosity. So then you can start to embrace it and learn, right? How to how to maneuver with it, and how to really say yes and sit in your yes, right? And sit in your yes. Okay. All right. Listen, I want you to know that so here's our heart check-in. I want you to think about what roles are you still performing that no longer reflect your current truth. All right. What roles are you still performing that no longer reflect your current truth? Okay. I want you to pause and I want you to speak your process, right? Because today it's not just about teaching you guys, it's about really reckoning with who you used to be. All right. And who you are finally becoming. Okay. It's really about reckoning that, right? And reconciling that. You see, when you start shifting old beliefs and really stepping into alignment, things can get loud, right? Things can get loud on the inside. All right. You might grieve your old self, even if that part of you was survival driven, right? You might feel tempted to shrink, to explain, and to go back. But hear me clearly. Hear me very clearly. That conflict isn't confusion, you guys. It is not confusion. It is evidence that you are expanding. All right. It is the evidence that you are expanding. So here's a few things I want you to remember as you embrace this moment, as you embrace this moment of growth. All right. I want you to remember that it's okay to grieve what you've outgrown. It is 100% okay to grieve what you've outgrown. Right. Yes, you're growing. You are growing. But it's also okay to feel sad about the people, the patterns, the roles, right? That no longer fit. All right. You're not ungrateful. You're just evolving. And that is spiritual work. That is divine work. That is transformational work. All right. That is the work. All right. So it's okay. Okay. It's okay to grieve. All right. Put a one in chat if that makes sense. All right. It's okay to grieve. Number two. All right. Listen, regression isn't failure. It's familiarity. Okay. If you feel tempted to really revert back, listen, you're not backsliding. That's just your nervous system, right? Adjusting. Okay. The key is still being consistent, not perfect. All right. So again, regression isn't failure, it's just familiarity, right? So if you feel tempted to revert, listen, you're not backsliding. It's just your nervous system adjusting. All right. So again, we hear this saying, but we don't really apply it, right? 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. Right? You're still a step forward, but there is the ebb and flow or the wax and wine or the bouncing, right? There's the balancing, there's the shifting that has to happen, right? So it's the pattern of life. So you expand a little bit and then you get pulled back, and then you go a little further, and then you get pulled back, and then you go a little further. So listen, regression isn't failure, right? But somewhere in our mind, we've been programmed to think it is. And I just want to unprogram that, right? I want to start unprogramming that. It's just familiar. I go out, my nervous system can only accept so much, and then it kind of comes back to what's comfortable, right? So it's not failure, it's just familiarity. All right. So if you feel tempted to revert, guess what? That's not backsliding, you guys. It's just the nervous system just doing what it does to adjust. All right. This is why we have to be consistent in what? In expanding and moving in that 3 steps forward with the 2 steps back, or the 3 steps forward with the 1 step back. But know that there's going to be what? A step back. There's going to be a step back, you guys. And that's okay. All right. That's okay. All right. But there's going to be a step back. And that's why we need coaches, supports, friendships, and things like that to really talk about those steps back, because they can be so emotional. A transparent moment. So I was talking to my financial coach last week. I think I was telling you guys this when we were doing our budget or whatever. But, I had to let go a couple of people. Well, one of the people in my team, they didn't want to come back. And, so that was emotional. And then I had to let go of one of the people in my team, and that was emotional. And as I'm talking to her, like, I really didn't know how emotional it was for me. And so, like, these tears are like, I couldn't even talk about the financial part of it, right? Without like telling this whole story. that like led me up to this part because it was so emotional. And I had to also, though, be reminded that it is the 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, the 3 steps forward, 1 step back. So in this step back, this is what that step back looks like. And now it's about what? Expanding and still putting myself out there and with new people and explaining the whole process over again, and getting a new marketer, and just the newness of it, right? And that's the unfamiliar part that the nervous system wants to cringe at, right? Or even wants to make excuses about, but it's about embracing, right? The duality. All right. It's about embracing the duality. If that makes sense, put it 2 in the chat. All right. Number 3, the very fact that you're questioning beliefs means that you're healing. All right. Listen, you're not behind because you're questioning your old scripts, you guys. You're brave because you're no longer letting them run you. It is okay to question. All right. The very fact that you're questioning beliefs means that you're healing. All right. All right. Number 4. And what does that questioning look like for you to say, like, is that, do I still believe this? What version of me is this serving, right? To just ask that means that you have become aware that maybe this is outdated. Okay. Maybe this is the outdated part of me. All right. And that means that you're healing. All right. Integration isn't about saying it. Okay. It's about living it. Okay. This is where mindset becomes movement, you guys. So I want you to ask yourself, where am I doing different now? Because I know who I'm becoming. All right. So integration isn't about just saying something, you guys. It's about living it. It's about showing up and living it, right, in your behaviors. All right. And then last but not least, don't wait to be ready. Just be real. All right. If you're feeling wobbly as you rise, that's okay, right? That doesn't mean that you are wrong, right? It means you're walking out a truth that you just used to talk about. Okay. You're walking out a truth that you just used to talk about. And that, my friend, guess what? Is what transformation actually look like. All right. So there is the wobbly, there is the instability, there is the uncertainty, right? Before you get strengthened. All right. So I want you to ask yourself, what's one small behavior that I can shift today so that it matches the version that I am becoming? Listen, you're not who you were. All right. You're not who they said you're not who they said. You're not who fear made you perform as. All right. You are becoming who you already were beneath the survival, beneath the silence, and beneath the self-doubt. And that version of you, guess what? It's not too much, right? It's finally enough for who? For you. All right, listen, you're not confused. You're conditioned. You're not confused. All right. You're conditioned. And conditioning tells you to prioritize what? Comfort over clarity. So if you keep shrinking to really fit outdated roles, guess what? Your soul, part of you will start grieving the parts of you that never got to live, you guys. All right. So you're not who you were. And that's not a betrayal, right? That's sometimes a blessing. All right. That could be a great blessing. All right. Listen, a client said to me once that when I stopped explaining myself to people and committed to really to misunderstanding me, I finally felt free. Listen, when I stopped explaining myself to people committed to misunderstanding me, I finally felt free. I thought that was so powerful. All right. All right. When I stopped explaining myself to people who committed to misunderstanding me, meaning they made it their mission to misunderstand me. Listen, when I finally stopped explaining myself to people who made it their mission to misunderstand me, listen, I finally felt free because psychological studies show that identity shifts often I psychological studies show that identity shifts often triggers grief and guilt before clarity and confidence. All right. So identity shifts often trigger grief and guilt before clarity and confidence, especially, guess what, in women. socialized into roles of service and self-sacrificing. So this grief and this guilt that you're feeling about the transformation, this grief and this guilt that you're feeling about this new life, this new change that happens, guess what? That is the first thing that you're going to feel before you feel the clarity and confidence. And that's why it's okay. All right. That's why it's okay. All right. You're not being dramatic. You're just evolving. All right. You're evolving. All right. So we know that, if that makes sense, put an 8 in the chat for me. So we know that on Mindset Reset Monday, we talk about stories, and these are all about rewriting your narratives, right? Again, the Stop and Now framework is truly about changing our narratives, right? Really came up with this, in 2018? In 2018, I started working with a coach, and we had to come up with a model, right? Some type of framework that was really focused, and I came up with Stop It Now. All right. And from 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, 22, 23, 24, 25, 7 years later, right? Been able to write a book, Stop It Now, been able to do the Lemons to Lemonade dissertation, right? And then now the trainer program, which I teach coaches how to teach people to be life coaches using the Stop It Now framework, right? And so I think it's so powerful to really understand what our stories, right? Because we can rewrite them. All right. So the stories, again, is about rewriting your narratives. And a big part of those narratives is that they won't understand me, because and when we write this, I want you to know that you are allowed to choose you. Okay, you are allowed to choose you even when other people don't. All right, so here are 10 essential things that I need you to know about stories and beliefs in this theme. Good morning, brother. Good morning, brother. How you doing? Stories and beliefs and embrace. All right, so embracing is all about this week. All right, listen, growth is not betrayal. Letting go of old roles, identities, and relationships doesn't make you ungrateful. It means you're evolving. So staying small to keep others comfortable is a silent form of self-abandonment. All right. It's a silent form of self-abandonment. So growth is not betrayal. Number 2, you don't owe the past version of you an apology, you guys. Many of us come from, just not the best backgrounds. And some of us come from great backgrounds. But no matter the background that we come from, no matter the old version, we don't owe that part of us an apology. Okay. Your choices you made before were based on who you were then. All right. You only know what you know until you know something different. All right. You're not obligated to carry those outdated expectations into your future. All right. And so many of us are not stepping into the beautiful, bold, brilliant people that we were created to be because of an outdated version of us, because of who we were in our 20s, because of decisions we made in our 30s, because of what we did in our teenage years, right? And because we know somebody knows that, and in some way we feel like if I that I'm unworthy because I did that, but you're a totally different person now. All right, so you don't owe the past version of you an apology. All right, what you owe is the person that you are today. You owe them your presence, right? This version of you today, you owe them your presence, and all of your presence, really. All right. Number 3, old stories will beg you to stay. All right. Old stories will beg you to stay. Even healed patterns can feel familiar, you guys. Just because something feels familiar doesn't mean it's aligned. All right. Familiarity is not always faithful to your future. All right. So just because something feels good, just because something feels, and again, I hear people say this on social media all the time, like, that somebody is for you when, like, basically, like, if they come into your life and it's like they bring peace, or if they align with, basically, like, you're looking for familiarity, right? You're looking for, in some way, we have thought that alignment is like comfortability. Like, in some way, when we go into places, we match with people, and we do things that there are not supposed to be any conflict that occurs. And if there is conflict, that in some way you're not either God ordained, or that you're a red flag, or is something wrong with you because you're and that because you are affecting my life. And that is just such like not true, right? That is just not true. That's like saying that if I go to the gym, that I'm only supposed to lift weights that, or I'm only, when I work out, I'm like not ever supposed to feel sore, or I'm never supposed to sweat, or like nothing is ever supposed to challenge me, and the things that challenge me are like not good for me. This is just like malarkey, right? It's not true at all. All right. So old stories will beg to stay. Again, even healed patterns can feel familiar. Just because something feels familiar doesn't mean it's aligned. All right. And alignment doesn't mean easy. All right. Alignment means that we value the same thing. So, for example, if I value truth and you value truth, then we may sit and have difficult conversations, right, to get to the truth. All right. If I value, I don't know, health, right, and you value health, or if I value boundaries and you value boundaries, then it may be challenging, right? Because I value my personal time, you value your personal time. So guess what? That may cause a conflict that what we need to learn how to communicate through, because we also value what? Each other. We also value what? Connection, right? And so the conflict is there to what? Strengthen the relationship, to get us to talk, to get us to have the difficult conversations that typically most people feel is red flags and will just ghost. All right. Listen, your belief system must match your becoming. All right. If your new identity isn't supported by a new belief system, guess what? You're default back to the old belief system again. So if your new belief system, if the new identity is supported by doesn't have new beliefs to support it, then it will drain, right? It will dissolve, right? Your mindset must reflect the version of you that you're stepping into, not the one you're walking away from. And that's the importance of even Project Life. That's the importance of life lessons, right? To really, as you grow, it's kind of like the only thing I can think about is like a cloud, right? So you got a cloud and you're under the cloud, and then you're growing, right? This old cloud is like the old beliefs of you, right? But you're growing into this new person. There should be a new cloud, right? A new belief system that's supporting this new person. Like there shouldn't be like this old cloud, this old you, this cloud shouldn't be following you, right? If you've ever watched cartoons or something like that, you see like this cloud over the girl and she's walking and she's like, and it's raining on her, right? Like you won't grow like that. Like as you're growing, like the cloud should change, right? So it should go from like, I'm not enough to, I'm working on it, to like, I am enough, to like, I am worthy, right? And as you grow, you're like underneath these new beliefs that's actually supporting what? The person that you are today. And if you don't have these new beliefs, right, then this person is going to naturally default back to what? This old cloud, these old way of beings, especially when you're pressured. If that makes sense, put a 4 in the chat, right? So your new mindset must reflect the version of you that you're stepping into, not the one that you're walking away from. That is why you need a coach. That is why you need a therapist. That is why you need support. And that is why you need to put the work in. That is why you need to activate and actually do, and allow that iron sharpening iron part to really be a part of your growth. Because as you're being pushed, as you're being challenged, right, you have to search deeper, right, to really mature in like this new belief of who you are. All right, this new belief of who you are. All right. Number 5, you're not faking, right? It's just new, right? So don't confuse discomfort with inauthenticity. All right, walking into healed identity will feel foreign at first, right? But it doesn't mean that you're fake. All right, it means that you're unpracticed. All right. So if I am saying that I am enough and I don't feel that, that doesn't mean that I am fake. That means that I'm unpracticed in what? In feeling enough. And then I start to what? Behave like I am enough. And the more I behave, right? Right, the more that I start to become the enoughness that I am saying that I am. And now it's in my behaviors and now it becomes a part of my a lifestyle. So you're not faking, it's just new. Okay. It's just a new behavior. Right. And so we practice, right? Life is about practice, 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 practice. Right. And what we practice, we become. All right. What we practice, we become. And what we don't practice, right, falls to the wayside. Right. And remember that the version of you that you were is the part of you that has been practiced the longest, because it has been practiced by who? By your mama, by your grandmama, by her mama, by her grandmama. Okay. So, that version of you has been practiced. So this new version of you that you're becoming, this new mindset, this new you, it doesn't, it needs to have more practice, because that old version of you has been supported by what? The community, the environments, and things like that, that has supported that identity, those beliefs and all of that. And now you're coming into this new belief, right, about who you are, this new belief about what you can do, right? And that's really the breaking of, or creating new generational patterns and creating new generational beliefs, right? And a lot of us are on the cusp of creating what? Not so much breaking, right? We're not breaking, we're creating new beliefs, new generational patterns. And that is why we need to practice, 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 practice as much as possible. All right. Number 6, this just is who I am. It's not a spiritual contract, right? You are allowed to rewrite parts of your identity that were formed in fear, survival, and social conditioning, right? Your identity is dynamic. It's not set in stone. So you are not static. Okay. So you can grow, you can change, right? Just because you made a decision in your 30s, you can change in your 40s, just because you made the decision yesterday, right? Just as who I am, this is just who I am, is not stitched in stone, right? No, it's not just who you are. If you want to change, you can change. All right. All right. Number 7, guilt is not always your guide. It's sometimes your gate. Listen, feeling guilty for outgrowing your past or the people is common. All right. It's common, but not always accurate. All right. So feeling guilty for outgrowing your past or people is common, but not always accurate. Listen, guilt can be a sign that you're honoring someone else's story over your own. All right. Guilt can be a sign that you're honoring someone else's story over your own. So you feeling guilty because of what somebody else's feel. So you're validating their story, their narrative, their belief more than you're validating yours. So guilt is not always your guide. It's sometimes a gate, you guys. Number 8, belief is a practice, right? Not just a principle. Okay. You can say the affirmation, and you've heard me say this before. You can say the affirmation, but until you live like they're your truth, guess what? Your nervous system will still default to what? To doubt, to disbelief. All right. So this week is really about moving from what? Theory to moving from theory to embodied truth to practice, right? Moving from theory to truth. All right. All right. Because belief is a practice, not just a principle, you guys. Put a 10 in the chat if that makes sense. And then number 9, you can love people and still not shrink for them. This is so powerful. You can love people and still not shrink for them. Outgrowing someone doesn't mean that you don't love them. I'm going to say that again. Outgrowing someone doesn't mean that you don't love them. It doesn't mean that you don't like them. It doesn't mean that you're better than them. It doesn't mean that they're worse than you. It doesn't mean that you're good. It doesn't mean that they're bad. It just doesn't mean that. It means that you are loving yourself enough to be honest about your truth. Listen, you may be a gallon and they may be a quart. And we know that some things are just meant to be quarts. And that's just what it is. And some things are meant to be cups. And that's what it is. And you are meant to be a gallon. All right. And staying at a cup or stand at a court, right, is not honoring your truth. Okay. You were meant to be a gallon. And so you growing into the gallon that you were meant to be, right, is just you honoring your truth. What's coming up for me is the giraffe and the turtle. All right. Have you ever heard this? I used to tell my sons this. All right. So the giraffe and the turtle have two different line of sights. All right. The the turtle cannot see what the giraffe sees at all. All right. So for the giraffe to in some way believe the turtle, to feel bad, like if the turtle's saying no, that's not it, right, the giraffe has to know that its line of sight is very different than the turtle's, right? So, and although the giraffe can come down, right, and see the turtle's line of sight, it can't stay down there for too long because literally it will fall over because the blood will rush to its head and it would like fall over, right? But some of us are giraffes. Our lines of sight is different. We are taller. We have just more expansive view of life, a different view of life. And some people in our life are turtles. And that doesn't mean that those people that are in our lives are turtles are bad people, right? Right? And sometimes we are the turtles, right? And we are around people who are giraffes, right? And their line of sight is different and they're telling us stuff and we're becoming defensive or, feeling judged or whatever. But it doesn't, the point I'm making is that, listen, you can love people and still not shrink for them. All right, you can love people. Outgrowing someone doesn't mean that you don't love them. It just means that you're honoring and loving yourself enough to be honest about, listen, I'm a giraffe. All right. All right. I thank you and I appreciate your viewpoint, but I got to keep moving. And that sometimes just doesn't feel good, but you okay. All right. And last but not least, you don't need more proof. You just need permission. All right. You've been collecting signs, you've been doing the work, right? You've been feeling the nudge. And this is your permission to just become the version of yourself that your future is waiting on. All right. If you need permission, I'm here to just give it to you. Hey, be you, because everybody else is taken. Be you, because everyone else is taken. Okay. All right. If you need permission, there it is. And being you will be the hardest job maybe that you ever had to do. All right. Because then that means that you have to rid yourself of everybody else, right? Everybody else's thoughts of you, everybody else's opinions of you. And then you got to figure out and decipher what your thoughts, what your opinions are of you, right? And sometimes you're going to get it right. And sometimes you're going to be right on point. And it is an emotional journey. But I tell you this, that you are supported in that by every cell in your body, by this divinity, by a greater creator, right? That created you, right? So you are supported in that. And your goal is to support you and being you because everybody else is taken. All right. All right. If that makes sense, put a heart in the chat for me. All right. All right, so our biblical wisdom, again, we're going to go through 2 scriptures this whole week. Hopefully, as we unpack these scriptures, right, we'll get some understanding. All right, so our first scripture is Romans 12:2, right? Do not conform to the patterns of the world. Listen, you don't have to conform to who you were in survival. All right, listen, the God within you is calling you to renew not just your mind, but your identity. All right. All right. Listen, do not conform to the patterns of the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. I'm going to do a life lens for this. So our life lens is that this isn't just about rejecting culture. All right. It's about releasing. It's about refusing to stay loyal to patterns that were birthed in your survival season. All right. It's about refusing to stay loyal to patterns that were birthed in your survival season. Listen, some of us are loyal by default, right? And so we're even loyal to some of our old beliefs and our old patterns. Listen, do not conform speaks to the temptation to shrink, to perform, or to fit old versions of yourself to make others what? Feel comfortable, right? The patterns of the world can be read as the belief systems, the roles, the identities that's passed down from fear, trauma, and conditioning, you guys. And then being transformed by the renewing of your mind affirms that your evolution starts with new language, with new thoughts, and more importantly, new agreements. All right. So the God in you is not interested in your performance, right? It's invested in your becoming. All right. You are co-creating. All right. And I know that we don't feel like we're co-creating, or there's this whole thing about the co-creation, like that God is God and you don't have an, but you are co-creating, right? In this new self through your thoughts, all right, through your choices and through your agreements. All right. You're not abandoning the old you, you're just evolving into the true you. Okay. All right. And that is, I want you to know that you are co-creating. You have a right of free will in how you choose to think. All right. And that is the co-creation, because you have the ability. The Bible even say itself, as a man thinketh, so is he. All right. So if as a man thinketh, so is he, then that means that what men create, right, by their own thoughts. So if the goal is now to align my thoughts, right, with the, to get in alignment, right, then in sync, right, in unison, right, with these universal laws that were put in place by the Creator, with this divine, with this divinity that was placed inside of me, then that is my contributing factor, right? That is me contributing that with the intention of what? Of experiencing this thing called life to its fullest. All right. All right. If that makes sense, put a heart in the chat for me. All right. Promise verse, Philippians 1:6, right? So being confident of this, right? That he who began a good work in you will carry it out to completion. All right. He who began a good work in you will carry it out. You listen, you're not finished, you're becoming. And God, the God in you, is committed to that process. All right. So he who began a good work in you will carry it out to completion. Guess what? This verse is your promise to be what? In process. Right? So you're not behind. You're not behind because you're still what? Growing. All right? You're not failing because it's taking time. All right? And you're not lost because you're outgrowing old labels and expectations. He who began a good work in you can be seen as your divine spark, right? Your sacred assignment, right, is still in motion. All right. You are not a finished project. And this, I love this verse because it also speaks to this aspect of us that feels like once this happens, right? But he who began a good work in you will carry it out to completion. So there is a working that's working. All right. All right. So you are not a finished product. You are a divine project under construction, guided by who? Guided by the God within. All right. Listen, the spirit in you doesn't just start something and walk away, right? That inner nudge, that desire to evolve, right? That restlessness that's keeping you up all night, that restlessness with staying the same, right? That's the good work that's still unfolding, right? And you can trust it even when others don't understand it. All right. All right. Listen, becoming isn't a betrayal, because this verse goes on to say, right? So there's a 6 and there's a 7. So being confident in this, that he who begun a good work in you will carry it out to completion. It is right for me to feel this way since I have your heart, or since I have you in my heart, right? And all of you share what? Share in God's grace with me, right? That's what 7 say. All right. So you are not betraying yourself, because being confident in this, that he began a good work in you and will carry it out to completion. It is right for me to feel this way since I have you in my heart, and you shall share God's grace with me. Guess what that means? Growth doesn't always feel good, especially when you're leaving behind parts of yourself that helped you survive. But this version of you wasn't wrong, right? It was just temporary. All right. And the inner critic sometimes will say, who do you think you are to change? right? And then that is projected right out into people who are looking back at you and saying, who do you think you are? Right? But that inner witness, the inner witness in you is saying, I'm not changing. I'm just returning back to my truth. I'm returning back to the entity that God created me to be. So this week's journey isn't just about proving your worth, you guys. It's about embracing the truth that you're worthy enough, right? And that we're all covered in God's grace. And because we're covered in God's grace, guess what? I don't have to apologize for the things I did because I was covered by the grace of God. Listen, you do not have to explain your growth to people who were only ever meant to witness, who were only ever meant to witness your becoming. All right. You're not finished. You're forming. That's another reason why you listen. You don't have to apologize for it. You were covered in God's grace, right? It said it, right? That we all share God's grace, all right? And the God within you is fully invested in who you are becoming. So you're not alone. You're not late, and you're not too much, you guys. You're just in the process, and grace has already gone ahead of you. All right. So it's already been covered. Everything you've done and everything what you will do. All right. Together, these scriptures validate three things. All right. That you don't have to conform to the version of you that made others feel safe. That's the one. Number two, that you are allowed to evolve even when it disrupts what others expect. All right. And then number three, that the change you're making is not rebellion. It's actually revolution, or your revolution. All right. And that is what sets you free, you guys. That is what sets you free. So how do we put this in practice? All right. We put this in practice by here are the action steps. Name one outdated role or identity that you're already released. All right. Set one small boundary that reflects the current you. All right. And say it out loud. I am no longer available for whatever that boundary is that you're setting. All right. If you need a journal prompt, I want you to, this is the journal prompt. Who am I becoming? And what do I no longer need to prove? All right. Who am I becoming? And what do I no longer need to prove? And then your affirmation for today. I am safe to evolve. My growth is not betrayal. It is sacred alignment. I am safe to evolve. My growth is not betrayal. It is sacred alignment. And then the intention for today. Listen, today I choose the truth over tradition. I release the pressure to explain who I am becoming. All right. All right. And then our bonus challenge. Notice today where you feel the need to explain your shift. I want you to pause. I want you to breathe, and I want you to respond with the power instead of an apology. All right. I want you to respond with your power instead of an apology. Now, you know that there's always going to be that call, that challenge, and that's charge. So I'm calling, I'm asking you, what truth are you walking away with today? All right. I challenge you to name an outdated version of you that you're releasing. And then the charge today is to embrace the you that's been quietly rising. All right. And go shape your life. All right. And here's what you can do. Drop a fire in the chat. All right. If you're done apologizing for what? For evolving. And if this session, and if this session impacted you on today. All right. I love you. I love you. I love you guys. I love you. Love you. And I will see you. Oh, and remember, if you can shape it in your mind, you can have it in your life. Listen, I love you. I love you. I love you. I'll see you tomorrow for that life lesson. Till later.